My name is Tanzania Vinson, and on behalf of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Dallas Metropolitan Chapter, I would like to welcome each and every one of you to our National Domestic Violence Awareness Program. Now, tonight's program will include a very interactive and informative panel discussion, as well as a unique opportunity for some of our creative members to provide some creative expressions, really representing domestic violence victims, as well as highlighting the impact of domestic violence. And so we hope that you will invite others to join us, like and share if you're on your social media platforms. And so now I would like to turn it over to your moderator and host for this program, Dr. Stacia Alexander. Dr. Stacia.
Thank you, Tanzania. I appreciate it. This is an exciting program that we have planned for you all tonight. I'm glad that people are joining in. If you jump in or you have somebody that you invited and they jump in the middle, they can also watch it in playback. We want to spread this message as much as possible because we have developed a wonderful program, as Tanzania expressed, and we've actually brought in different outlets. So we think that it'll speak to different types of people, and we can share that to an audience maybe that wouldn't necessarily listen to a discussion like that. So we thank you all for being here. I have the privilege of moderating this panel of two beautiful ladies who are very well versed in domestic violence, one professionally, one because of her personal experiences. And I want to take a few minutes just to introduce them to you and then give them an opportunity to say hello to the audience, and then we'll move forward in the program. So Silk Littlejohn, she is an expert lifestyle coach for the blind and victims of domestic violence and abuse. Being a speaker gives her the opportunity to travel and engage with people from all walks of life. As an accomplished licensed cosmetologist, holistic practitioner, and the CEO of the Silk Littlejohn Experience, she is determined to live her life limitless. After surviving and losing her eyesight to domestic violence, Silk Littlejohn has gained a unique and powerful perspective on faith over fear. Her mantra is, "I am not my blindness." Through her transparency and her confidence, she relays this message. She is determined to use her testimony to become a guiding light for those that have lost their courage to conquer their fears and help them regain their self-confidence. More than just a survivor, Silk is an active thriver that's not just on social media, but does that in real life. She is always ready to share her life-changing experiences with the world. Thank you, Silk, for joining us. We'll want to hear from you in just a second. I'm going to introduce our second panelist, Judge Shequitta Kelly. She was born in Michigan City, Indiana, and is married to Antonio Hubert with 3 children. She graduated as a first-generation college student from Indiana University with a dual bachelor's degree in criminal justice and psychology. So we do have that in common with the psychology major. In 2003, she earned her law degree from Indiana University School of Law. Judge Kelly subsequently joined the Indiana Allen County Prosecutor's Office, where she served as the felony domestic violence intake prosecutor for over 6 years and prosecuted hundreds of cases. Her experience led her to Dallas, Texas, where she received her Texas law license and joined the Dallas County District Attorney's Office. After 6 years of prosecuting severe child abuse cases at the Dallas DA's office, Judge Kelly pursued her judicial aspirations. In January 2015, she was sworn in as the presiding judge of Dallas County Criminal Court Number 11, which is a family violence specialty court. Since becoming the presiding judge of Court 11, Judge Kelly has made significant changes to both the criminal justice system and the community. She created the country's first multifaceted domestic violence offender program, Intercepted. It is designed for first-time young offenders who have been charged with an assault case. This 9-month rehabilitative program provides mental health and substance abuse treatment along with batterer's intervention. Judge Kelly also recognizes the importance of a criminal justice system that is efficient. In June 2016, she implemented the importance of a criminal justice system which allowed cases to move through the system on an expedited timeline. This time frame has provided for a better safeguarding of the offender's rights while maintaining the safety and the needs of the victims. Although she spends most of her days in the courtroom, she knows that educating the community on platforms such as this one is essential to reducing crime as well as preventing injustice. Each month, she hosts an event called Curls, Clippers, and Conversations, which is geared towards educating the hair industry on the criminal justice system. In addition, she helped create Pipelines of Possibilities, an initiative geared towards keeping the youth out of the criminal justice system. Throughout her career, Judge Kelly has attended various courses on domestic violence. She has spoken at national conferences, and she is an active member in several professional organizations, including the Whittington Home Shelter, Literacy Alliance, NAACP, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and Dallas Urban League, Dallas Bar Association. She is busy. The North Dallas, Texas Democratic Women, Irving Democratic Women, South Dallas, then South Dallas Business, and she has mentored numerous people. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. I appreciate it. Would you like to share a few words in addition to the wonderful bios that we've heard?
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yes, I'm really glad to be here. I'm honored that you all chose me to be on this panel, and I hope that I can give some information that is helpful for your viewers.
I am really looking forward to it. Silk?
This is such an awesome, anytime someone calls me and says, hey, Silk, can you lend your voice? That's in my heart. It's a passion of mine. So I am very honored to be able to join this panel. And I really hope that my perspective and insights can help someone. If it's not just one person, it'll be of help.
It's a privilege to meet you. I've followed you for a while and know your story. So it's great to be on the panel with you. Thank you for joining us. Well, we're going to launch right into our program, and our first monologue is I want you guys to just sit down and get comfortable and really listen to the words of this. Can I get my life back? Let's hear from the first monologue.
I don't know what I miss most. I guess everything and everybody. I miss Aunt Tam's potato salad at the family reunion. I miss Uncle Elliot's brisket. I miss slamming down dominoes and playing spades and kids running around in the backyard. I miss going to the restaurant for a quiet evening and then having it ruined by the loud children in the next booth. I miss the waiter that barely smiles or makes eye contact while serving you. Hell, I miss traffic, especially the honking. All of us stuck together, frustrated and tired, wanting to get wherever we were going. I couldn't tell you the last time I drove somewhere. I don't know if I even remember how. There's a grocery store a couple of blocks away. I can walk there. It's good exercise. That's what he said. He doesn't like takeout. He wants home-cooked meals like his mother made his father. A couple of times I almost walked past the grocery store. I almost took a few dollars in my purse and caught a cab. Do people take cabs anymore? But I went into the store. I got 3 flax steak, a head of lettuce, 2 tomatoes, a cucumber, and 3 large russet potatoes. Oh, and a bag of cheddar cheese. I came back to the apartment and I made his dinner. It was on the table by the time he opened the door. Lord, and just like every night, he came in and ate it without a thank you, just like every night. I miss love. Lord, I miss not having to bear my heart. To my stray dog that's not only listening because I have food in my hand.
Thank you. That is powerful. We are very mindful that some of these may cause some discomfort. We are going to talk about resources, and we're going to talk about what this looks like in homes. So Judge Kelly and Silk, if you can unmute yourselves. And, you know, when we hear stories like that and people wonder what's going on, like, how do you even explain domestic violence to people? How do you define it?
Well, I define it as any type of violence that occurs within the home, between intimate partners, between family, siblings, and roommates, and also violence that occurs outside of the home that's between intimate partners or those who have a child in common.
Mm-hmm.
Domestic violence, there's also the level of financial and emotional and physical violent abuse that's included under that violence. A lot of people think it's just legally, for it to be criminally charged, it has to be a physical act. But domestic violence extends to more than that. There are some offenders who will not allow you to eat, food abuse, or they'll take all of your finances, financial abuse. So although I've given you the legal term of domestic violence, there's a lot underneath that umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I agree. Domestic violence, it's like a thunderstorm. Every raindrop is different that hits you. You know, it could be a soft drop and has the most impact than hard, large raindrops. So you can't judge one incident just because one woman got shot.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make her as a victim more substantial than the woman that has to be contained to a closet every day. She can't sleep in her bed.
Mm-hmm.
Because emotional abuse is hard, and sometimes you never get over. Those physical wounds will heal, but those emotional ones, those are scars that are deep in the soul that you can't, there's no medicine, you know, there's no Band-Aid that you can cover.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
A lot.
And how do we even report statistics when you talk about that huge of a variable? How do we even begin to tell people, oh, 70% of women have experienced domestic violence, or 1 in 5 family members? Or like, what all do you share? What statistics do you use to convey to people how big of a problem this is in our communities?
So for me, I have to go by those that are reported.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So in my court, I take statistics on every offender that pleads guilty. So I have a form that they fill out, and I track to see where are my offenders coming from. I feel like in order to combat domestic violence, you have to understand it and know what you're dealing with.
Okay.
And so I can tell you just alone, there are 30 criminal courts in the Dallas County Courthouse, and only 2 of them are designated to hear solely domestic violence cases. That would be my court, and then the court across the hall, which is Court 10. In that, the other courts will have sprinkles of cases depending on what the offender has been charged with. So if they're charged with a felony case, then the different felony judges will have domestic violence related cases as well. But in my court alone, I have currently 1,400 pending domestic violence cases. That is one court out of 30 courts.
And you
That's
have 1,400.
1,400 pending. That means there are active cases right now. So in that, so like I said, whenever I have an offender in front of me, whether it's a female or a male, and they plead guilty, I have them fill out this form. And I can tell you just from locally in my courtroom, 90% of my offenders are below poverty level. 80% of them are minority men. And that's where I get my statistics from as far as the demographics of an offender. Now, I can tell you nationally, they say every 20, let's see, what is the statistic? It's every 20 people every minute report abuse. So we've been on here for, I would say, what, 10, 15 minutes. Imagine how many people have reported abuse in that small amount of time.
Right.
A lot of people. And then nationally, the statistics say 1 in every 4 women, 1 in every 7 men. But I think those are only the cases that are reported, right?
Right.
That's the way we can track. So we know it's way more than that, because there's a lot of women and men who don't, especially men, they don't want to report that they're being abused by their significant other.
Right.
So those numbers are low in my mind.
Yeah, because Silk, when you say the difference in someone who's shot and then someone who's just, not just, but someone who is contained to a closet, like, do you talk to your audience about that? Like what that looks like in terms of statistical information?
Well, for me, when I speak, it depends on who I'm speaking to.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to address the teens and young adults.
Okay.
And so sometimes people, when you give them numbers,
Mm-hmm.
they'll discard. There's no way. There's no way. There's no way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what I do, I'll say stuff that's like that gets them in the gut.
Okay.
Really hardcore. And one of the statistics that rings really, really strong is that when you tell someone, which is true, that there are more women that are affected by domestic violence and abuse than there are women that are affected by breast cancer and uterine cancer combined.
Mm.
There are more animal shelters than shelters for victims. That gives them, that's thought-provoking.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Right.
Provoking, and it puts them into a different realm of thinking.
Yeah, I didn't know that. So you're saying there's more animal shelters to protect animals than there are domestic violence?
Oh yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes. And so when you think about that,
Can I add to that? And I just want to say, in the courtroom, I noticed that, and this is really sad, I noticed when I was a prosecutor, if a pet was involved in that abuse, the jurors would find that offender guilty like that.
mm-hmm.
If there was no pet involved, it was very likely I would get not guilty, or they would give a weak punishment.
Do you think that's because people still have this notion that you should be able to get yourself out of that situation? That as a human being, a thinking human being, that you should be able to some kind of way save yourself. And they look at a pet and say, no, they're just at that person's mercy, because they don't understand the psychology behind abuse.
Yes, I think so. And I also think that women judge other women a lot harder.
Okay.
They say, well, if I was in that situation, I wouldn't deal with that. Or maybe she shouldn't have said this, or she shouldn't. They put a lot of blame on the victim that female jurors typically do, unfortunately.
And so, Silk, what you talking about?
It's really hard for, like, again, let's go back to breast cancer or
Mm-hmm.
uterine cancer. It's easy for people when October is breast cancer awareness month, domestic violence, and blind awareness month.
Mm.
But people gear more towards the breast cancer awareness and other awarenesses because there's no one to blame. They don't have a direct person in front of them to say, you did this. So consciously, they're able to deal with it better than to say, my father, my brother, my uncle, my coworker, my boss, my son did this to a woman. That's a hard pill to swallow and to accept.
Right.
And so how do you deal with that? How do you deal with a family bonding when you have someone in the midst of your circle that's harming one of the queens.
Okay, we're going to keep talking about that, because I mean, that just brings up an entirely different thread for me. And, you know, especially where you have families, when you talk about families being so close, like, what if they won't leave? Like, there's abuse and they won't leave. So let's pick up there after we hear from our second actress. Check on your strong friends. What about those ladies who are strong?
They do. They do things that they shouldn't, and they say things that they shouldn't. It doesn't make them bad people. And it doesn't mean that the people that are willing to forgive them are stupid. Listen, I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree from an Ivy League university. I have articles published in esteemed academic journals, and I have all kinds of people, companies, organizations flying me out to speak at their conferences. So see, you're not talking to a stupid woman. You're talking to a woman that realizes love ain't easy. And it's not just him. The ugly things I do. I can be unkind and insensitive. I'm not perfect. But you know what? He forgives me. And he loves me regardless. You know, I remember the first thing he told me. He said, I see you and I'm not afraid. My whole life, I've been too much for people. And it seems like I'm always running someone off. And I'm always doing something to, well, he loves me. He's so passionate, but you know what? Sometimes that passion makes him do things that I wish he wouldn't. But I'm willing to forgive him. I don't want to be a successful woman who has everything in her life but love. I want it all and I deserve it all. Shoot, we don't always get what we want when we want it. And then we expect men to be Prince Charming all the time, like that's feasible. Nobody can be perfect all the time. Nobody. You know what? He sent me 24 of my favorite flowers this morning. This time, it's different. This is the last time. I know it is.
Thank you. I mean, that brings an entirely different population, especially when we talk about Black girl magic. We hear that a lot. We hear a lot, the strong Black woman, the alpha female. We hear those conversations quite a lot. What do you say to women that feel like, nah, this is not abuse? And even if it is, this is just something that I have to deal with. Like, do you think that makes it more difficult for people to empathize with them and come to their rescue?
I can only speak from my experience and women that I have spoken to in circles. It's easier for me to not tell someone because you already know as a victim that you are a victim. Mm-hmm. So I don't have to tell you a victim. Mm-hmm. I don't have to tell you that what he's doing to you is wrong. Mm-hmm. I don't tell you that you need to leave. That's not what they want to hear. Mm-hmm. They need an enforcement from the back office that's coming through and giving suggestives of if these are things that should be done. They need direction. They don't need you to talk to them about what to do. They need direction. And they need you to tell them it's okay that you feel like you need to stay. It's okay that you feel like you need to fix it. It's okay that you feel this way. But because you feel that way, it's why your silence, you're allowing your silence to be the holder of the key to your prison. You see what I'm saying? So they need guidance. They need someone to say, for instance, hey, you know, you look nice today. Dang, I sure miss you going out. I sure miss our breakfast and our lunches, our dinners, and, going to different social events. And, one day, if you ever just want to get out, let's just get out and just have girl talk. And talk about not the abuse, not about what she's going through, but what she wants to do, her future. And you paint that picture so vivid that right there is the destiny that she wants to go to. You don't talk about what she's going through. Talk about the future. Talk about this is what's available and this is how you can get there. They don't want to hear, girl, you ought to be tired of yourself. You ought to be ashamed of yourself staying with that man. How do you do that? How do you stay with a man? You know he ain't no good. Well, how can you just keep? They don't want to hear that.
That makes sense because so you're talking to us from the personal level that the woman, especially if she's a strong female, she understands. She knows what is happening. And then Judge Kelly, from a legal perspective, do you see those women a lot in your courtroom where they just get tired and fed up, or maybe someone else called legal for legal help? Do you see that in your courtroom?
I do see it. And I also know that those type of women, when they have to testify, they turn off the jury unless the prosecutor has properly prepared the jury. Jurors expect for them to be weak and for them to be crying, and each victim is different. And so I had a doctor who was a victim, and her husband was a scientist. And she got on the stand and she was not crying. She was a matter of fact about everything. When they asked her to talk about the incident, she was able to go through without any tears because she was a strong Black woman. But they found that as, well, she act like, it didn't even hurt her. She act like, so those type of women, there's struggles with them on the stand, not because it didn't happen to them, but because they are able to carry that weight and not crumble. And there are some victims that as soon as they talk about what he did to them, they crumble right there on the stand. Well, a lot of strong, especially the professional women, we are taught to pack that stuff away and just handle it, check it off. Let's go. And not only that, we are the strong Black women are kind of like we carry all the burdens for all our family and friends. And so we don't like to appear weak. Right. And like Ms. Littlejohn said, judging us, saying judgmental things, you're not going to get anywhere with it. I mean, think about it. We're all strong Black women on here. If you come to my girl, I don't understand why you're going to tune that out. Right. That's not you're not going to get anything out of me like that, talking to me that way. But if it was a different way, like, so girl, I thought you was going to start a business. Tell me about it. What do you think about it? Right. And completely, because you're right. We know what we're going through, and we know this is probably not a good situation for me. I don't need my friends to tell me that. I don't need my mother to tell me that. I need you to encourage me about all the other things great in front of me. And I'll deal with him and leaving at my own pace. You're not going to force me in that situation because we are very strong. We're set in our ways, and we have a way of crossing our own journey. But in the courtroom, to answer the question, it is very difficult. I have noticed, and I relate to a strong Black woman, a career woman, a professional woman. So when they're on the stand testifying, it doesn't bother me. But my jurors, they're like, well, she just kind of seemed, some of them say mean, or she just didn't seem like, she cared. And I have to explain to them, well, maybe first of all, this happened a year ago. First of all, she's done with it. She's here because she wants to make sure that he suffers the consequences for his actions, but she's moved on. So it's been difficult, but a good prosecutor can prepare a juror for that.
I think
yes, prosecutor prepare the. I've been on the stand. They came and told me that, okay, hey, 2 weeks before you're getting ready to go to trial. They came 2 days before the trial to talk to me. I go in there, I'm shaking. I sit down. This is my first time being in front of this man that took my sight, beat me down, was sexually inappropriate with my child. And now I'm in the same courtroom with him, can't see him. And I lose it. I couldn't do it. I just started crying because I was just so afraid. The questions they were asking me, what happened and how did this happen? And you have to prep a victim to get on that stand just as if you are, that is your, if she, I don't know, am I saying it right? If she's the if you're a defense and you're defending her and you're trying to keep her out of prison and you want to, you know, she's got to take the stand.
Right.
I don't know what that's called. I don't know if it's the.
No, it's a defense. You're right.
Yeah, the defense. So they have to get that in order to get these guys behind. They have to get that victim and go over this stuff at least 2 weeks and prepare them. And these are the questions, and this is the atmosphere, and this is, you're going to hear moans and sighs and movement from the jury, and you know, and they're going to interrupt you and say objection. They're not going to let you finish your sentence. All this stuff, I wasn't given that opportunity.
Right. That you're making good points. I'm glad you guys are sharing this, because I don't think the audience really sees this side of what domestic violence looks like. Like, I've never heard anyone talk about prepping the victim, whether she breaks down on the stand or whether she's stoic on the stand. That's not the issue. Like, I think that's what people forget about, that's not what we're here to debate on her response to the abuse. We're here to say, did he abuse her? Or if it's flipped, did she abuse the man? So those are some things that I think our audience really needs to hear. You know, we were talking about statistics before, but I know we will see some amazing rises in the numbers post-COVID. Like, are you guys following the trends now? Have you seen any literature come out yet about what's going on during COVID, the pandemic?
What do you mean?
I don't need any literature because I'm living it every day. I see it in my court. I've noticed the increase. I'm working more than I have ever worked. And what's surprising for me is there are a lot of first-time offenders. Normally, you know, you see repeat offenders, but with COVID, there's a lot of first-time offenders that have no prior history. And I relate that directly to the stress related to COVID and the lack of resources. People have lost their jobs. People got these little bad kids that they trying to teach for school at home. I told my husband, I said, I'm so glad we don't have any school-age children. I'm not good at teaching. But you combine that with no money, with liquor stores are delivering. So why not, let's just order some liquor and watch some TV. I'm not working. And next thing you know, things get out of control. It starts off with something small, and before you know it, there's a fight. So I have definitely seen an increase, and it's still going up.
Yeah,
it's still going up.
I think that's what we're going to see coming out on the other side of this. We're going to take our third break for the monologue. I mean, just because it's perfect timing, but this next one is choosing. You can stop the cycle.
Girl, I've heard too many stories about shelters. I just had a friend tell me about something that happened to her when she was a little girl. Her mother was running away from her father, and they ended up going to one of those local shelters. You know, the ones with the big room, beds lined up against the wall, people moving around everywhere. They had been doing so much that day. She said her mother was tired. She just fell asleep too hard. And while she was sleeping, she never blamed her mother. She never told her mother. She kept that secret to herself. Can you imagine that? Maybe if it were just me, but girl, I've got my daughters to think about. They need a roof over their heads and food on the table. Child, you know my situation. Right now, I can't do that by myself. If I could, I would have been gone. I do not want to call my father. He never liked Eli anyhow. He didn't think we should get married in the first place, and he never let me live that down. He'd kill him. I'm sure he would. Then my girls would end up without a father. I don't want that for them. I want picket fences, cute little dogs, family pictures all around the house. I want them to grow up in a house built by love, like I grew up in. I don't think they know what's going on. At least I hope not. I wake up every morning and I smile as much as I can. They just think I'm clumsy, that's all. And Eli jokes about it, and like with everything else he does, they just laugh, and I do too. It's our little family joke. What did mommy trip over now? Was it the couch, the power cord, the end table, daddy's fist, daddy's foot? Clumsy mommy, always falling, always hurting herself.
Choosing you to break the cycle. Ladies, I would really like for us to spend the last segment of our panel discussion today talking about resources that are available in our communities. How would a victim go about accessing those resources? And Silk, you told us that you work with teens, young adults, so especially providing some resources for them that's readily accessible. And Silk, you're back on mute, so just before you start talking. Judge Kelly, will you share with us some resources?
I'm going to give a resource that a lot of people don't talk about, because I know everyone knows about the different shelters, Genesis, Family Place, Women Called Moses, which is in the southern sector. But people typically don't know about U visas. And U visas are for those women who are victims of violence that are not citizens. And so if you have, and it doesn't matter what country they're from, but if they are a victim of family violence, they can apply to get their citizenship so that they can leave the offender and still stay in the country. The only requirements of the U visa is that they be a victim and that they cooperate with prosecution. That's a really big thing for a lot of women who have come here, especially like mail order brides. That does still happen. They come here and they're stuck because they don't have any family and they're suffering all this abuse, and they just take it because they don't have any family. They have nowhere to go. They don't, a lot of them don't speak the language sometimes, or if they do, they barely understand the legal process, and it's just difficult. So if there are any victims out there that are listening to this, or anyone who knows of a victim who might not be a US citizen, have her contact the DA's office and apply for a U visa. And that will basically grant her citizenship. I mean, a lot of women get it from that. They have to cooperate with prosecution, and once the case is completed, then they get their citizenship.
Yeah, I had never heard of that. Yeah, you're right. Thank you for sharing that.
And also victims can, you know, because every victim is different for everybody, you know, so the circumstances are just totally different. And access to get to the resources, or access to be able to speak to someone, you know, you can't use your cell phone in the home, or you can't just go out because he's going to go with you. So the best thing that I would do, I tell a lot of people, go to the police station. If you're out shopping and you need resources, you know, take an Uber to the police station. And at the police station, they have a department for victims of domestic violence, and they can help you get, and they will give you or guide you into the direction in a safe manner so that you can get an emergency protective order, shelter. They can help you with relocation. They can help you with so many different things discreetly so that your partner doesn't know what you're doing. And they have a lot of great, and then you develop a relationship with them. So if it ever happens more serious than what has already happened, you know who you can go to, and they're already familiar with your case.
What is that one that I heard? If you call a number and order a pizza or something, what do you?
I heard about that. That's recently. That was like last year. That actually was a victim that called the police department. I mean, called the Pizza Hut or something, and she ordered a pizza, but luckily the operator happened to understand that this was more than an order for a pizza. Okay. And I believe they turned it into a actual hotline. Okay. I just don't know the information to that.
Okay. I mean, come to you at all. I was in Ross department store, and this lady was in there. She had all these clothes, right? And I'm like, I'm blind. She kept asking me, can you help me zip this? Can you help me, And she kept giving bits and pieces. And I'm like, something's not right. And I can't see her to see her facial expression or see, what's going on. And she was trying to let me know, I got all these clothes. I don't want to go back out, that I'm in trouble. And I said, girl, why you? Oh, I said, listen, what's going on? She said, I'm in trouble. I said, oh, she sounded young. And I said, well, did you steal? Are you stealing or what's going on? She said, no. She said, my boyfriend, and she had a cut on her back, and he had put plastic saran wrap and taped it, right? And she said, I'm done. I don't want to go back. So I had to go back out in the dressing room. Out the dressing room, I talked to my daughter. My daughter went and got the manager, told the manager came back there. They was being very discreet. They called the police, and it was a done deal.
Right.
A done deal. Do you hear me? They come to you in all kind of forms. You
Right.
have to know. You have to know. For me, I don't have to see you. I can hear it in your voice and tell that you're a victim. I know you know that. How you doing? I'm doing all right. Did you hear that pause?
Mm-hmm.
I need your help. I'm doing all right. How you doing?
Yeah. I think that's part of it, is that we have to listen to other people. Another resource is that QT is a safe place. They have the sign up in front of all of the stores that people can go there. And that's not just for domestic violence either. Isn't that if a child is unwanted or something, like that's a place that you can go to get help. And something that I did not highlight that Judge Kelly said at the beginning, that domestic violence is not just between two people who are in a relationship. Domestic violence is between family members. It could be siblings that are fighting one another, and that still would qualify as domestic violence. And I think people need to understand that before they do get in a world of trouble.
But before we start sending people to QT, we have to be very, very careful about that.
Yeah, sex trafficking.
The moment you get ready to leave someone, that is the most high risk, dangerous aspect of domestic violence and abuse. Is the moment you say, I'm gone. You think they're not gonna come in behind you with that at QT? They don't care. They will shoot you, the customers. They don't care. If in their mind, I would rather see you dead than be with anyone else. QT can't stop none of that.
That's why you go to the police station. That's why you go to the police station. That's the safest place to go. Right. Yeah. And I think too, if even, so let's spend just a few minutes talking about women who cannot get away from their perpetrator. Like there are situations like that. You talked about women who are locked in closets. Like there are situations where you just can't get a break because this person is with you 24/7. So that's where I guess the inconspicuous kinds, where you can call the phone number. I think it's a couple of other things that women can do, and we'll post the resources that are available. Like Judge Kelly was saying, there are some shelters, but there's also some other options that people have too for getting the help that they need. And prime example, just go to the police station. But some people don't even think about it when they're in the midst of it.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I always tell people in the community, because they want to know, well, what can I do? How can I help? How can I save a victim? And I say, you can post this on your social media and hopefully someone will see it that is a victim. Okay. But you can tell the victim to have one friend. Every victim has somebody. Mm-hmm. Whether they tell them all their business or not, they still have that one person that they'll reach out to, and the offender will let them reach out to occasionally. Right. But one person needs to know a code word. So if I text you, the pizza is hot, or the pizza in the oven, you know to send 911 to my house immediately. Right. The police to my house immediately. So I tell people in the community to just that simple idea put on Facebook, that gives a victim that's watching or scrolling, oh, well, I'm going to contact my girlfriend and tell her if I ever text her 666 to call 911. Don't call me, call 911. That means it's bad.
Immediately.
So that's one resource that they can use. It's sort of a safety plan, just something where you don't have time to have a long conversation. You have enough time while he went to the bathroom to pick up your phone and put something in really quick.
Right.
And then You could save our life.
Do that. Like, as a lifestyle coach for victims of domestic violence and abuse, I just keep it 100. I keep it real because I've been to I was on the very extreme end. So he's following you around. He knows there's going to be one day when you're going to get strong enough to say, I'm gone.
Mm-hmm.
So what I need you to do, sis, is I need you to go outside, find a rock in the backyard, hide you some money up under there, put you a sack in the garage. I need you to start planting stuff like you getting ready to go for East. It's getting ready to be an Easter hunt. So when you do make your break, you don't have to be wondering about, I need my keys, I need this, I need that. You set you up, you get you a set of keys. Wherever you're going to break out, if you're going to break out that door and run, you better make sure at your neighbor's house behind her blue vase, you got a set of keys to get in your car.
Yep.
You better make sure that you can go tell your neighbor, take me around the block because I buried some money at this. You better have a game plan, A, B, and C, because you're not going to always have that moment for a phone call. When I got beat in the back of the head with a boot, and you have your mother in the house with you, and you're trying to, your whole life flashes in front of you. What am I going to do? I wasn't prepared. I just knew I was ready to go. Nobody had schooled me on, you don't tell nobody you getting ready to leave, you just go. See, that's why you have to, awareness is key. That's why you need voices, because somebody needs to help you understand a foolproof game plan. Because it ain't just that easy just to pick up the phone and say 911. Where you gonna go before 911 get there?
Right. So that's why we have to have these conversations so people will understand there is a need for a safety plan. It's not going to happen by osmosis.
Right, right.
This is a wonderful conversation that we need to have. And more importantly, like you were saying, if we post, all of us post this on our social media, and we don't help but one woman, one family overcome domestic violence,
right?
Great work, because that legacy of that family can move on. I'm going to ask you guys this question as we prepare to close. In terms of services post domestic violence, I know Judge Kelly, you know, I read in your bio that you do incorporate mental health services in there. Do you find that people will accept the mental health services post domestic violence situations where they're out, they're in a safe environment? Are they open to that?
So, and I think Ms. Littlejohn might be able to answer this a little bit better. My services, one thing I think that is missing in the fight against domestic violence is resources for the offender. And when I say that, a lot of people are like, huh, what? I'm like, there's tons of resources for the victim, but if we want to start cracking down on the problem, we also have to address the issues that is going on with the offender, because he's just going to get another victim if we don't do something. So my program is geared towards mental health for the offender, battered intervention for the offender, substance abuse for offender, because a lot of these offenders have mental health issues and they're not diagnosed.
Gotcha. Okay.
So Ms. Littlejohn, you might be able to speak to the mental health aspect.
Resources for mental health.
There are a lot of resources. The state has a lot of great resources. If you're a victim of domestic violence and abuse, they will pay for your counseling.
Okay.
All of it. I don't care who. You can go to one that charges $500 an hour. They're gonna pay for it. Okay. They will pay for relocating. They will pay for whatever, physical therapy, whatever it is you need to get back whole and be productive again. The state is there for you. However, there are a lot of, because of shame and embarrassment and judgment, a lot of women, a lot of victims, let me say, especially men, they shy away from those type of services. And so when they're at home, they become depressed. Their emotions of how they're dealing with everything becomes dysfunctional towards their kids, towards at work, so they can't keep employment. So they have to go through a whole there's a whole package of things combined that a victim has to go through. For me, for instance, when I lost my eyesight, I was in the hospital for 30 days. I protected this man and didn't tell nobody until, do you understand, when the last thing I saw was laying in the hospital bed and I was looking out the window and the light from the sun. And at that moment, I kept telling the doctor, I can't see, hold on. I started screaming, hold on. You know, I started stretching my eyes and hold on. You know, I started panicking. I said, okay. And they said, well, Miss Littlejohn, I said, and that's when I started telling it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get to the victim long before they become physically and emotionally abused, because once they become emotionally abused, they're now caged. They are no longer of themselves. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're doing. They're afraid. So you can't speak. You have to speak to them now. We have to speak to these victims now before they're so emotionally
yeah.
They can't speak or function on their own. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
It's hard, especially for people that are blind. Do you know how many blind victims there are? Think about someone that's blind that can't even, they don't know where the victim is, so they don't know where to run to. They can't figure his facial expressions out or what he's going to do. We have to, in order to eradicate domestic violence, we keep talking to the victims. Yes, the victims need saving, but before they were a victim, what? Why are we holding seminars and classes before they become victims? Why are we concentrating on that? We have all these domestic violence banquets, and guess what? Everybody's in there with their suits and gowns on, donating that little $5 because they paid $200 for the ticket, so they don't want to donate no money, dancing, drinking. No, why don't you hold these events for people that can't afford to get in there? They can't afford a gown. They can't afford, you know, the tuxedos. Let's hold the events for them. Let's preach to them.
So what?
I'm tired of going to these events with everybody dressed up and there's not a victim in the house. Who we preaching to?
Okay. I think that is an area that, you know, needs to be considered. Thank you for bringing that up. So you're saying, Judge Kelly, you recognize that the perpetrators need services, and Miss Kelly, Miss Littlejohn is saying we need to also incorporate the victims in these programming that we're doing, and you know, the fundraising and the events like that, but also in terms of recovery and healing. They're getting the treatment, but you're saying we need to get to them before that substantial and long-term abuse occurs. And I think that comes through the education. That's right. What you're talking to people when they're young. We have these platforms, we have these panel discussions, and we're out in the community pre-COVID, if you will, holding these talks and really exercising our voice in the community to warn people nobody is immune.
Nobody.
If it's happening to you, it could happen to someone that you know. So let's put some things in place as a community to offset that.
We have to consume the entire pie.
Right. We have to look at it from different angles. We have to look at it from the neighborhoods, from the churches, from the corporate offices. These things are happening and we cannot ignore them any longer.
Elementary.
Yeah. I appreciate you ladies joining us for this panel discussion. It's really been great. I'm glad that we have a resource list that'll be available to our audience. Some of the resources that you guys shared, hadn't considered that about the code word. I remember having a code word when I was growing up, when I went out on a date. If I text and said whatever, you know, it was like, I'm ready to go. So we need to pay attention. So that's a good idea. The monologues, the actresses, thank you, ladies. I do want to pass it off to our newly elected president, Madam President Sonia Irby. Will you share a word for us, and then we'll prepare to close?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so much to our panelists, Judge Kelly, Ms. Silk Littlejohn. You have really shared not only your expertise tonight, but your experience as well. And what we heard, I believe, tonight is that domestic violence is no respecter of persons. It doesn't look like what we always think that it should look like. Being a victim or being an offender might not even look like what we think it should look like. So we want people to choose to break this cycle, and it could come in such a simple form as having a safe word that you share with a friend, as we talked about tonight, knowing your rights, getting yourself to a police station so that you can be with people who could help you be safe and to explain your rights to you. Those of you who may be victims, please get to some of these resources to help you and your family be safe. And also, those of you who may be watching who are not victims, but you know someone who is a victim and you want to help, be that friend that they can share that safe word with, and also donate. We've heard tonight that there are more shelters and more resources for pets than there are for victims of domestic violence. So if you are looking for a way to help, then you can donate to any of these resources that you heard us talk to about. So again, thank you to our panelists tonight, to our moderator, Dr. Stacia Adams, to our monologue performers. You did an amazing job tonight. To our committee, we thank you so much tonight, and thank you for tuning in to our audience. Please continue to follow the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Dallas Metropolitan Chapter on all of our social media channels. Thank you.